The Big Apple. It's as much a staple to any good Spider-Man story as Spidey himself. Recreating a realistic New York City is one of Marvel's Spider-Man's greatest accomplishments. But just how realistic is Insomniac's version of NYC? I'm Freddy with the leaderboard, and we're gonna compare some of Manhattan's greatest landmarks to the ones you'll find swinging around as Spider-Man. We'll also be looking at all the extra buildings and landmarks that Insomniac included to really make this feel like Marvel's New York City. A Marvelous New York. Insomniac, while going to painstaking lengths to recreate an authentic New York, was not shy to really make this city feel like Spider-Man City. Peppered throughout the game are superhero locations you would only find in Marvel's Manhattan. We found them all, so be sure to swing by next time you're foiling a high-speed chase or, catching pigeons. Spider-Man isn't the only one protecting NYC's streets. Fans of the Defenders will be happy to hear that Daredevil, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones all have locations in the game. In Midtown, you can find Rand Enterprises, the business corporation of Danny Rand, the immortal Iron Fist. It's located in the north part of Midtown, a few blocks south of the southeastern corner of Central Park. Chikara Dojo, a martial arts dojo owned by Iron Fist, is also mentioned during the side mission, Spider-Man, though it never makes an appearance in the game. Alias Investigations, located a few blocks south of the center of Hell's Kitchen, is home to job-breaking, day-drinking, private investigator Jessica Jones. In typical Jones fashion, the sign of Jessica's detective agency is pretty broken and beat up. Daredevil fans have plenty of places to check out. First up is the law firm Nelson and Murdoch, found right in the center of Hell's Kitchen next to Josie's Bar, corner of 44th Street and Body Street. It's the base of operations for Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, and his longtime partner friend, Foggy Nelson. Heading over to Hell's Kitchen, we'll find Fogwell's Gym, just north of the center of Hell's Kitchen, the gym where Matt Murdock's father trained and fought to be a boxer. Murdock's mother also gets a shout out as you can visit Clinton Mission in the game. It's located along the southeastern edge of Hell's Kitchen. This is where Murdock's mother, Sister Maggie, works. Finally, after a long day of kick-butt crime fighting, you can take Spidey for a cool drink down at Josie's Bar. It's located almost perfectly in the center of Hell's Kitchen and is the famed dive bar that Matt and Foggy regularly visit. Speaking of bars, be sure to stop by the Bar with No Name, located in the center of Harlem along the Diagonal Avenue. It's a local hangout for villains of the Marvel Universe. Moving away from the dark and dirty street-level crime of NYC, let's get to the big-time superheroes. The Avengers Tower, located dead center in the Upper East Side, is the most obvious to spot in the game. Sporting a look that is very close to its MCU counterpart, this tower can be found scraping the Manhattan skyline towards Upper Manhattan. With big-time battles comes big-time messes. Thankfully, Tony Stark has NYC covered. The Damage Control HQ, located in the eastern tip of the financial district, is where Tony's construction company heads to after a hard day of shouldering rubble. If you're in the mood for something a little more mystical, head over to Greenwich to check out the Sanctum Sanctorum, located at 177A Bleecker Street, near the bottom of the southeast quadrant of Greenwich. Home to the one and only Dr. Strange. Peter makes a quick comment about how strange the building feels. New York is home to many embassies from all over the world, and this includes the Wakandan Embassy, located in Midtown close to the East River, and the Symkarian Embassy, located just a few blocks south of Wakanda's embassy. Wakanda is the fictional country of Black Panther, with Symkaria being the birthplace of Silver Sable. While Sable and her men make an appearance in the game, unfortunately T'Challa and the Dora Milaje do not. Empire State University, located in Greenwich off the northeast tip of Washington Square Park, is an interesting location in the game. While it's not a real NYC college, it is certainly based off of the famous NYU. ESU is where Peter spent his college days, and many side missions actually have you going to the campus. NYU is spread out across dozens of campuses and residential buildings throughout Manhattan, while ESU is relegated to just a quad, which is certainly not the case for its real-life inspiration. Washington Square Park is jokingly referred to as the only real quad by NYU students, though here's dreaming for greener pastures. While landmark Spider-Man buildings like Oscorp, Fisk Towers, the Daily Bugle, and the homeless shelter Feast all make an appearance, it might be easy to miss another big-time Marvel corporation. The Roxxon building adds another sinister building to Marvel's Manhattan. Roxxon has a long history of shady dealings and dark interests in the comics, appearing in Ultimate Spider-Man as well for a short time. While the big buildings are great, make sure to check out these smaller Easter eggs as you zip by the beautiful NYC skyline. Uncle Ben's grave, which can be found on the north southwestern tip of Harlem, gives players a chance to mourn and also get a trophy for interacting with the grave. Thanks, Uncle Ben. The famous Wall Street Charging Bull statue got a bit of a Marvel makeover as well. Players will instead find a Lockjaw statue, who they'll recognize as the lovable mutt from the Inhumans. Lockjaw has the power to teleport and also make great selfies. That's all the Marvel locations we've uncovered, and with DLC on the way, who knows what else can show up? Amazing architecture. Even without superheroes, NYC still has some incredible buildings of its own. Insomniac had a heroic task in front of them, crafting some of the world's most famous buildings. Let's take a look at some of the in-game landmarks compared to the real-world locations in NYC. And also check out what classic NYC locations did not make the cut. The One World Trade Center makes its gorgeous digital debut in Marvel's Spider-Man, also called the Freedom Tower. It is the tallest building in Insomniac's Manhattan. Looking at a picture of the real-life Freedom Tower, it's easy to see where the buildings differ. Spidey's version has a sloped top, while NYC's version is more squared off. In the 2016 and 2017 trailers of the game, the Freedom Tower actually looked like it does today in Tribeca. Designers eventually decided to go with the original 2002 design of the tower, created by architect Daniel Libeskind, a thoughtful tribute to the craft of this monumental building. Central Park also gets the Insomniac touch, as this massive park gets expertly recreated in the game. While it's not exactly the same scale as the real deal, there is no denying its size and splendor. The layout itself is also accurate, with lakes and open spaces mapping out in the same general area. I kinda wish we had more rock formations and hills, but that's just a personal opinion. Radio City Music Hall is constructed in painstaking detail, as it looks like an incredible one-to-one recreation of the famed NYC venue. Located in Midtown, a few blocks southeast of Central Park, the colors, shapes, and placement of the building are all there with meticulous detail. No Rockettes though. The United Nations headquarters can be found in Midtown along the East River, and is another near-perfect recreation. Insomniac took their time to really get the imposing look of this building down. A great representation of the many different cultures that call New York home. St. Patrick's Cathedral is a must-see, both in game and in real life. You can find it in North Central Midtown. The design of this angular and complex structure is recreated with masterstroke precision from Insomniac. This level of detail is usually seen in Assassin's Creed, and it's great to see NYC get some architectural love. While most of these landmarks cannot be seen from the inside, Grand Central Station, which can be found in Midtown to the right of the Empire State Building, is prominently featured as one of the game's main missions. The gigantic train station is lovingly recreated, with some modern-day Oscorp renovations, of course. Be sure to look up and check out the green constellation ceiling. While not a perfect one-to-one recreation of the famous starry ceiling, it gets the job done. Of course, it wouldn't be NYC without Lady Liberty making an appearance. The developers have the Statue of Liberty in the right spot, right near Ellis Island in southern Manhattan. While Spidey can swim this time around, unfortunately he can't quite make the swim all the way over for a visit, maybe in the sequel. Culture Vultures will want to make a pit stop at the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, located halfway up along the east side of Central Park. This cultural icon in NYC has a rounded, futuristic structure that was taken right from the Manhattan Upper East Side and put into Spidey's NYC for your viewing pleasure. While Insomniac had a ton of wins when creating their version of NYC, let's check out some landmarks we unfortunately did not get to see. Following up on the museum front, one of NYC's most famous museums, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, known by most as the Met, is nowhere to be found. Insomniac did include a replacement, called the Manhattan Museum of Contemporary Art. Unfortunately, this fictional museum doesn't look anything close to the Met. New York's beautiful waters can always be traversed by ferry, though in Spider-Man's NYC, the Staten Island Ferry Terminal won't be charting those expeditions. The famous ferry terminal regularly gives passengers a free trip across the Hudson from Lower Manhattan to Staten Island. This orange ferry was prominently featured in Spider-Man: Homecoming, as fans will remember Peter desperately trying to keep the ferry from splitting in two. The ferries can actually be spotted in-game cruising around. Be sure to snap a photo as a keepsake. We already mentioned the Charging Bull statue being replaced with Lockjaw. Union Square actually gets a statue replacement as well, though this one is definitely not as cute. Union Square is a lush, open park near the East Village that normally welcomes citygoers with a statue of George Washington atop his horse. Instead, Insomniac opted to put William Henry Seward there, who normally sits atop his bronze throne in Madison Square Park. That isn't the only instance of Insomniac combining some of the city's landmarks. Let's take a look at the map as a whole. The Shrunken City, While Insomniac's version of Manhattan is colossal, in comparison to the actual New York City, there are a lot of places that didn't end up being fully realized. The game's neighborhood map rolls the Village, Soho, and Tribeca into one large area known as Greenwich. The game's version of Chinatown encompasses the Lower East Side, Little Italy, and the East Village. I'm bummed to see Little Italy overwritten, but I wouldn't be too mad to see Chinatown take up more space than real-life Manhattan. Think of all the good food you can get. In another welcome expansion, Hell's Kitchen in the game has grown to include Chelsea and Midtown West. And just like in real life, Midtown is a confusing amalgam of Gramercy, Midtown East, and Times Square. Looking at the northern end of Manhattan, Spidey's NYC ends around Mid-Harlem. Sorry, Luke Cage. This means that whole neighborhoods and other landmarks such as the Apollo Theater were omitted from the game. Since the in-game map ends about midway through Harlem, this also means that neighborhoods like Washington Heights, Sugar Hill, and Hudson Heights didn't make it into the game. Unfortunately, players who live in NYC's other 4 boroughs, that is, Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, and Staten Island, will have to settle with beautiful views. None of the other boroughs are playable. While they're certainly viewable, players won't even be able to traverse Peter's hometown of Forest Hills, Queens. Maybe that'll be a flashback in the DLC. Overall though, many parks, especially as you head into Upper Manhattan, get the Ant-Man treatment. Madison Square Park is much smaller in the game than in real life, and also had its shape changed. The in-game park doesn't have nearly as many trees or detail, and also doesn't contain the original Shake Shack location that is still there in real life. To be fair, they probably couldn't handle animating all the long lines. Herald Square shares the same fate as Madison, though here, it's even more noticeable. Herald Square is a beautiful area that can be found on 34th Street, right by Macy's. It's a large area that acts as an unofficial start to Midtown. Insomniac unfortunately relegated this park to a small square that really doesn't do the park much justice. Possibly the worst mission of all is us! Insomniac, you left our office entirely off the map! The Statue of Liberty, Radio City, and everything, it's nice and all, but couldn't we get a little leaderboard love? We'll be checking for it in Spider-Man 2. Insomniac absolutely put a ton of passion and craftsmanship into creating their version of Manhattan. From Marvel Easter eggs to resplendent replications of some of NYC's most well-known landmarks, their Manhattan was meant to be explored by land and by web. Hopefully in future games, or DLC, we'll be able to travel to other boroughs or explore a little more of northern Manhattan. While not a perfect recreation, it is easy to see Insomniac's love for the Big Apple. Successfully recreating New York City is a great responsibility, and it's safe to say Insomniac would make Uncle Ben proud. If you still haven't gotten enough Spider-Man, check out our 107 Facts video on Spider-Man for PS4 and our Spider-Man Easter eggs video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to your friendly neighborhood leaderboard, your home for video game facts.